So last time we went into the before reading strategies, and we talked a lot about activating the children's background knowledge, and that's the schema. The background knowledge is what they bring to every text before they start to read it. And we talked about helping them to make connections to that. So building on from that today is session 2. And I just thought I would sort of talk you through the 7 keys to comprehension before we get started. So these go in order from here, across, and then across. And monitoring comprehension sits out on its own because it's the one comprehension strategy that you have to have. You have to make sure that you're understanding what you're reading. So if you're not understanding what you're reading, you're never going to be able to infer, you're never going to be able to synthesize, any of those other ones. And there's no point in reading unless you're understanding what you're reading. But very often we don't make that explicit to children, that they should be understanding and thinking as they are reading. So last time we did activating background knowledge, and that's the first in the hierarchical set of keys. So once they're able to do that, and then they get on to reading the book, then we check that they understand what they're reading as they go along. And then all the others come afterwards. So there's a small cartoon for you. A lot of the time, we ask children to read a book because, well, we ask them to, and children read to please us rather than to read for learning or to read for pleasure. So it's really, and sometimes they don't understand that they're supposed to be reading in order to learn. So it's really important that we go through that with them and we make it explicit. So today we're focusing on what to do during reading, and that is monitoring comprehension. And just a quick word about responsibility. It's not our responsibility as the teachers or the reading wizards. It's not our responsibility to make sure that the children understand the book. Okay, it's the children's responsibility to make sure that they understand the book. They're the readers, they've got the book. Their responsibility or their job during this session is not to be passive, it is to make sure that they understand what they're reading, and if they don't understand, it's their job to say, I don't understand. Okay? Now sometimes children need some help knowing what not understanding looks like, and some sort of prompts and some strategies to help them. So that's what we're going to go through today. So first of all, what does monitoring comprehension mean? It means that children keep track of their thinking as they read, listen and view. And we started to do that last week with the post-it notes, tracking their thinking, well, tracking their almost the connections that they made to the story or the book that they're reading. But now it gets a bit more sophisticated because they're actually listening to their inner voice as they're reading some text, and they're reacting to what they're reading. Rather than just connecting, they're actually thinking, oh, does that make sense? Oh, I never knew that. Or wow, that's a new fact. So actually keeping track of what they're thinking as they go along, not just getting to the end of the book. They have to notice when the text makes sense and when it doesn't. And this is a really key one. They have to distinguish between what the text says and what they think. Okay? So what they think might be their connection, and it's a way into the text, but what the text actually says might be something a bit different. So you need to make that explicit to the children, that they can talk between the two of them, and that they can take their thinking and what the text says, and they can come up with their own understanding of what the text says. Because everybody brings their own understanding to a piece of reading, and they only take from it what they want to take from it, regardless of what the author's intention is. If you don't read it and stop and think, you're not going to get the message that the author wants you to give. So you have to merge those two ideas together. So these are the kind of things that you need to be making really explicit when you're reading with the children. And I would imagine maybe some kind of visual cue cards something like that you have on the table in front of you when you're reading. So, big question mark in a head, does it make sense? Things like that, visual cues, so that the children know that that's what they're constantly supposed to be doing. So if we know what understanding looks like, then children and the teachers have to know what understanding or not understanding looks like as well, so that they can recognise when their reading is not making sense. Because the key again is responsibility. Okay? If a child is reading silently, you have no idea as the teacher whether it makes sense or not. And was it Jaden?
Yeah, I'm Jaden.
Do you remember last time you read that piece out loud?
Yes,
and you
I
read it beautifully, but it didn't make any sense, did it? So children can read out loud and do exactly what you tell them to do, but it can make absolutely no sense in their heads whatsoever. So just because they're reading out loud isn't evidence that they've understood what they're reading. Okay? So if we know what they should be doing, then what does not understanding look like? So the voice in your head changes. I stop thinking about reading and I just cover the words. You get that all the time. Children, I call it barking at text, just going ba 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 done. I was in a class today actually, team teaching, and a little boy, we were making connections to a text, and he came up to me and said, I don't have a single connection. And he'd read this whole book, and because he's used to just getting to the end of the text and that being the job, not the learning, but getting to the end of the book is his job. And it's not the same thing at all. So he needed a lot more modelling of what the purpose of reading was. So if children get bored or quickly confused or don't remember what they read, but this is sorry, explicit, but it has to be made explicit to the children because you have no idea what's going on in their head. So you have to get them to tell you if the reading doesn't make sense. I no longer have a mental picture of what I'm reading. The camera in my head is turned off. They're all kind of similar. My mind starts to wander and start thinking about all sorts of different things, but not about what I'm reading. We've all done that before, had to reread the same paragraph 3 times. Thinking about something else. I can't remember what I just read. And this is a key one actually. I'm not asking or answering questions as I go. A good reader should be saying, oh, I wonder why the character's doing that. I wonder what's going to happen next. But if you're just blandly taking the information in and you're not asking or answering those questions, then you're not thinking as you're reading and you're not monitoring your comprehension. Oh, there's one more. I come across characters and have no memory of when they were introduced. I haven't kept track of what's happening. Okay. So, if you do, when you are reading with a child and they say to you that they don't understand what they're reading, or you've noticed that they've started to wander off, or they're not able to answer a couple of questions to see if they have understood, then there's a few things that you can do to fix up their comprehension. There's one vital one missing on here actually, I realised on the way over, but we'll go into that in a minute. So they can go back and reread, which is the main strategy that we all use. Go back and check it again. You can read ahead, so if there's a particularly difficult sentence, you can read ahead, see if it's explained a bit more. Often in non-fiction books, particularly scientific ones, in fiction books that have difficult words in them, they'll be there, but then they'll be explained in the next sentence. So you have to just read ahead a sentence, or it will be explained in a character's action, or what the character says. So you just have to read forward and use that as a teaching point to explain what the tricky word or concept was. The child has to say, I don't understand that word, or I don't understand what's happening here. Why has the character done that? Or I don't get what this book's about at all, So they have to be able to say those kind of things to you. Pictures are great. Use the pictures. Often, especially in primary school, we get parents coming in and saying, I've covered up the pictures and they still can't read the words. And it's like, let them use the pictures. It's what everybody uses. It's the major cue to use. That's what they're there for, to enhance your meaning of the text. And to talk with other people about it as well. So make reading a conversation rather than a chore or a task. And the one that's missing is what we did last week, which is not worrying on my behalf, was connecting. So go back to your connections that you already had and see if they can help you to understand what's going on in the story. Ignore that for a second. The other problem that you might have sometimes is that children struggle on actually decoding words. So if they get stuck on a word. A good instructional text, so a text that's good for reading and teaching of reading, the children should be able to read 90% of it fluently, and 10% they should have to decode or struggle on a little bit. And when they're decoding, that's a chance for you to then teach them those skills. And I'm sure you've seen these before. Sound it out, chunk the word, leave the word out, read on, come back to see what makes sense in the sentence. Try a different word in the sentence, see if it makes sense. Again, use the picture clues. Okay? But just because they've decoded the word doesn't mean they've understood what the word meant. So then it would need some extra talk around it. So this is where I got a lot of this stuff from, which is actually a really good book I've heard. It was used on a course that I was on, so I just directly stole it from there. Comprehension Strategies for Adolescent Readers. So I think probably the best thing to do now is to have a go with some people who are here and just... Sorry, I can't make it go back in one. So, as you go through reading with a child, explain to them that you're supposed to be thinking as you're reading. You're supposed to be checking if you understand. So as we read, tell me if you don't understand. And to begin with, you'll probably have to check at the end of each couple of pages. So tell me what happened in that page. And if they say, I don't know, or they can't tell you, then say, oh, well, I would have said this if I was unsure. So you'd have to model to them the process of not understanding, so that the more you model it, the more they'll start to do it independently. Okay? And you probably need to go into these in a lot more detail, I would imagine, with them individually. But you can have a practice. We've got three course students that come every week. So if we can practice reading with them, or just chatting amongst yourselves about it, because we don't quite have enough. But okay, so last time, what we did, I don't know your name, sorry. Sai. So last time we made connections through the book. We literally just flipped through the book and talked about what he connected with as a reader. This time, we're going to listen to you actually read, Jaden. Is that okay?
Okay.
And now, if you get to a bit that doesn't make sense, or if there's a bit that you don't understand, what do you think you could do? Do you think you could say, I don't understand this? Can you help me? Do you think you could say that?
Probably yes.
Yeah? So if when you're reading, the words don't make any sense in your head, and you don't have a picture of what's going on in the book in your head...
I can read.
Yeah? Can you say that you don't understand when you don't understand?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let's give it a go.
Okay. This story is called Ben and the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Written by Simon Cheshire. Ben ran out of the shed. Look, Ruby, I have made a time machine, he said. Ruby was on the swing. She stopped swinging and looked at Ben. Your machines are rubbish, she said. This time, machine could send you back in time, said Ben. You could have your birthday all over again. It's brilliant.
Do you get what? Sorry.
That's all right.
Do you get what's going on?
Yes.
Yeah, what's happening?
Ruby was mad at Ben, and she said that his machines are rubbish.
Now, did you notice here when you went this time
Machine.
and then you said machine, and in your head that didn't make sense, and then you paused and you went back and you said this time machine. That's you listening to whether it makes sense or not in your head, and you checked it for yourself.
Could spend back in time.
Could.
Send you back in time. Said Ben, you could have your birthday all over again.
Wait, so do you think Ruby's angry at him? Mad at him?
I think she must be.
What's its function?
How does it work?
No, what does it do? What is its purpose?
It's to have the lights on.
He doesn't know, so you need to
Okay, so
explain that.
here.
So he sounds like he
Here.
knows exactly
What does he say?
Your machine, this
No.
time machine could send you back in time.
What does that mean?
It's to send back
In time.
on time.
In time.
In time.
So it means with this time machine, I can go back to yesterday and relive the whole day
Yes, we can return
to the past.
to the past.
So T-Rexes, when were they alive?
They were alive
Long
a
time.
long time,
Yeah,
which is
long
in the
time
past.
ago. So then how did the T-Rex pop up? Because what did he do to the machine?
He switched on the dial.
Turn the dial.
He switched on the dial.
Yeah, and
that's
then?
why the lights flash all over the machine.
So he turned the dial and they went back in time, all the way back to thousands and thousands of years ago, and then a T-Rex is now with them because he went back in time with his machine.
Yes,
It's like an imaginary
A time
story.
machine.
It couldn't really happen.
that was a very long time.
Yeah. And then do you see what Ben says over here? What does he say?
Whoops, I turned the dial too far.
Means he was just supposed to go back a short while ago. Yeah? So like if you want to go back to yesterday, you can turn the dial to yesterday. But then if your hand turns it too much, then you go back so long ago.
Really, really long.
Really, really long ago.
when
That's why.
dinosaurs were.
Yeah. Do you understand it now?
Yes, a time machine is when we go back to the previous day and then it can go to the next day.
Yeah. Not only previous day, any time in the past.
It can be in the past when,
Yeah.
because yesterday I went to my favorite place.
So you want to go back in time?
Yes.
So I think you should ask Ben for his machine and maybe you can go back in time. Yeah?
Sometimes we all wish.
And what happened next?
Yeah,
What
okay,
happens
good. Let's find out. But that's a good question. You want to know what happens next. It's a good question.
With a huge crunch, the T-Rex ate the swing. Then it turned to look at Ruby. Run, Ruby, run! Shouted Ben. Ruby screamed again and ran into the house. And that time when the boat suddenly dropped down was so scary. The river ride,
Yeah.
the raging river ride. Look at that. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was hungry.
You were right.
With a huge crunch, it ate the rubbish bin and the kitchen light. Then it looked at Ruby again. Mom! Dad! Shouted Ben. But Mom and Dad didn't hear. They were listening to loud music. The Tyrannosaurus Rex roared at Ruby.
What's going on now?
The Tyrannosaurus Rex has eaten the trash bin. Look at the dustbin. The dustbin got eaten.
Yeah.
All the rubbish from the dustbin spilled out.
See what happens next?
Oh, what's gonna happen? Ben, do something! Shouted Ruby, screamed Ruby. Ben turned on the dial on the machine. The light stopped flashing. Suddenly, the huge Tyrannosaurus Rex vanished into thin air.
Okay. Why did he just disappear?
He disappeared because Ben had turned on the dial machine.
Yeah, and now where did Ben go? We said the time machine can take you to the past, but it can also what can
Take
it?
us back to today.
Yes. So Ben turned it, and they went back to today, right?
I don't want to go back to the past.
No, me neither.
Okay, so let's continue reading.
Then, Mom and Dad's loud music stopped. They came into the kitchen and saw the mess. Who made all this mess? They said. Uh-oh, how do you think these parents feel?
How do you think they feel?
Cross?
Yeah, why? Why would you be cross?
They're mad at them because I can see the look at the eyes.
Why are they
glare.
feeling cross?
Because this is a big mess. What? They're so mad.
You want to read page 19 again?
Something what? And what's that?
Obviously, that animal could be real. A shark, obviously.
Oh, shark can be real, but what?
Are we talking about the action or are we talking about an object?
Okay, I can tap your shoulder. Yes, you find okay. But what's this? What's this?
A fin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the fin from? Where's the fin from? Whose fin? Whose fin? You're in the water. It's shark around you.
From your parents.
From our parents.
Yeah, for like it could be weekly, it could be monthly. Because you spend money, yeah? We all spend money, yeah? Yeah, so then our mom needs to give us some money to be able to spend. And so pocket money is like an amount that our parents give us to put in our pockets and then we use it when we need it. So then why do you think she's saying no pocket money?
Because the son and daughter didn't tidy up the mess. And that's why Mom said no pocket money. Yes, this was all your fault, said Ruby. Yes, said Ben. But my next brilliant, but my next machine will be brilliant.
Why is that ending a bit funny? It says, but my next mission will be brilliant.
And look what happened to Ruby. This is golden Ben.
But what do you think this last line is?
That's a machine.
What will be a nice machine?
The next one.
Do you think the next machine will cause more trouble? Or do you think it would be a good machine?
I hope it's a good machine.
So just to show you, Jaden, when you made your connections about the Tyrannosaurus Rex, your connections helped you to understand that this Tyrannosaurus Rex was going to be dangerous because you knew that from the movies and you knew that from your own background knowledge. But when you're not sure about something, so if you don't know what a time machine is, you have to say, oh, I'm not sure what a time machine is.
I'm not sure what a time machine is.
Brilliant. And then the person who's reading with you can have a conversation about what a time machine is, and it can and it will help you to understand.
Do you know what a
the
time
story.
machine is?
I explained it to you. You tell me what a time
That's
machine
when we
is.
go back to the past.
And what is pocket money?
It's what we get from our parents.
Yes.
Yeah. What should we do if we see a Tyrannosaurus Rex?
So just to finish, sorry. Yeah, are they finished? I don't know. So just to finish off, just before we finish, I just sat and read with Jaden and Sai, sorry. And what was really clear was when you read with a child, you have to give them a chance to say to you that they don't understand. If you constantly ask them questions, then they lose that sense of responsibility because you're doing the checking for them. But you can ask, like Sai was doing, some really sort of key questions. So as you read the page with them, there was a page about a time machine, and Jaden read it so beautifully, and I thought he'd understood exactly what he was saying. But one careful question, tell me what's happening on this page, or tell me what's happening in the story, sort of brought out the fact that he could retell what was happening in the pictures, but he didn't understand what a time machine was. So the whole sense of story was going to be lost, so we needed to find out what a time machine was and go back through that. But not by going, what's a time machine, asking them what happens, because you get so many insights from them as well when you leave the questions a bit more open and you get a bit more information from them. And I would say pick your questions as well. Pick the ones that really are key to the understanding of the story, not just questions for questions' sake. Yeah? Okay, I think that was it. Does anybody else have anything to say? Yeah.
I often, this is for my children at home,
Yeah.
and I often use prediction. So
Yeah.
I say, after they've just read a passage, I'll say to them, oh, so what do you think's going to happen next? And then they start kind of summarising what they've read if they comprehend it. So they might say, well, Johnny's just kicked the football. I think that football is going to hit the neighbour's glass. They'll say something like that.
Yeah.
I found that helps me. And then I do the same thing when I'm like, if it's family afternoon and we watch a movie, I'll put the subtitles on.
Yeah.
So they're reading and then they're listening.
Oh, that's a really nice idea.
Yeah. And then we do that, and then I'll pause and say, what do you think's going to happen next?
Yeah, that's a really good idea actually. But all of these things, so predicting is another strategy, but all of these merge together, but you cannot predict unless you have understood what you're reading. And actually predicting, JD did the same. He went, I wonder what's going to happen next. And you know then that he's monitoring his own comprehension because he cares about what's going to happen next. So all of these little clues that they give you and cues that they give you to show that they are understanding what they're reading. So I think the main takeaway from today is to remember it's their job to tell you that they don't understand. And you can check in with a couple of open-ended questions and check in on the key concepts like time machine, but let them tell you and let them be responsible for their reading. And that's it.
Thank you, Catherine.
So that was part 2. And that's going to go on YouTube. So we'll be sending out the link to everybody. So if you're working with Reading Wizards over the next week or so, try to get them to go onto the link. We'll send it out to them. Helen, if you can do that, work with Dennis. We'll send the link out and make sure they've read it. So if anyone sees any Reading Wizards working with students, just ask, did you watch the training? It's really important, and remind everyone they've got to come next Wednesday at the same time.
What would be really good, chipping in there, what would be really good CPD for everybody is if you film yourself working with a child, reading with a child, and then you watch it back. And then you can see whether you jump in too much or whether you sit back and let the child lead the session. I found that was really useful for me. Yeah, so if you've got someone who's around to film it, that's something you could do. And if you wanted to do that, I'm always available, but we can come back and analyse them together. That's absolutely fine. That'd be great. Yeah, we can do that.